Thank you everyone for joining our Innovator preview for Ivanti Neurons ITSM and ITAM for the second quarter of this year. So some other opportunities you have right now as an Ivanti Innovator. We have a few opportunities for you to speak with our UX team right now, or our other product marketing managers for beta Ivanti One Login. We also have a recording of our Ask the Expert session that we did at the end of February with Chris Cottle live on Innovators Engage. So if you missed that and wanted to hear Chris answer questions directly from customers, please take a look at that. We also have a challenge series going on in Innovators Engage, learning about more what's happening at Ivanti Solution Summit coming up. So if you're attending or if you're thinking about attending, please take a look at that. And some other opportunities coming up. We have another Innovator preview later this week on Thursday, so the 14th, for our risk-based and patch management solutions. So please be on the lookout for that or go register. I'll put the links in the chat. And then some user groups that we have coming up are our first UWM user group of the year, and then another Women in IT user group meeting. So if you haven't checked that out, please do so. And then we did have a preview yesterday, an Innovator preview yesterday for Ivanti Neurons. If you weren't able to join, that recording link will be out sometime next week. So just, I'll post that on Engage if you are interested in seeing that. And then one final plug for our Ivanti Solutions Summit. We're less than a month away. If you haven't registered, please do. I know a lot of the PM team will be there. Some people from my team will be there. So let's all register and get to see each other live. Alrighty, that's it. Peter, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Cassidy. Welcome as well from my side. I'm Peter Adams, Senior Director of Product Management here at Ivanti, focusing on the service management space. And myself and my colleague Alan Taylor are very excited to share with you what's coming in the 2024.2 release in this next upcoming release. So you get a bit of a preview in what's coming in the not too distant future here. I'm joining you today from the San Francisco Bay Area, and it's exciting to see that so many of you are joining here in the session today. Before we get going with the preview, let me take care of two housekeeping items here. One is the standard roadmap disclaimer that many of you know. Even though the capabilities are very close, and we are actually this week we are feature complete in terms of the code. We'll go into a testing phase. Still, there's a chance that things may be changing before the release. I wanted to call that out. This is subject to change, what you're hearing today, and then we'd also like you to keep this information confidential, right? So that's one item. The other ask that we have is many of you probably know Gartner Peer Insights, which is for many prospects when they look for a new ITSM tool, an important source of information, right, as they make tool selections here. And we'd like to ask you for a favor here and ask you to submit a review for Ivanti Neurons for ITSM. If you're happy with the product, if you're excited about the platform, we'd like to ask you to submit a review. It's very simple. It doesn't take much time here. You can either scan the QR code that you see here or take a picture for now, fill it out later. And then you would have to create an account if you don't have one already. And that account creation involves your business email. That's an important aspect. Gartner doesn't recognize private email based on Yahoo or Gmail, etc. So it's important that you register with your business email. Now, the review itself will not publish your name, etc. It's just in order to register the review, you'd have to create a corresponding account, and then you have to fill out a couple of questions. Again, we'd like to ask you to leave a 5-star review. We need about 20 or so more to achieve this customer choice recognition. And then one important item is Gartner, when they ask about, whether recommend a tool based on a scale of 1 to 10, Gartner considers anything 7 or less as not recommending. So if you wanted to recommend the tool, you'd have to select 8 or higher. That's an important aspect here to consider. Also, if you already previously submitted a review, maybe it's a little bit older, you can just log in again, click on the thumbnail here that represents your account, and then in the menu, pick My Reviews. And then you can update the review. Again, please pick a rating of 8 and higher for the recommendation and a 5-star. Because Gartner only looks at the most recent one. So if your review is older, in order to count for this, you would have to update it. But that, again, is super easy. You just look at My Reviews and then update the existing ones that you have, right? Again, a favor to ask is would be great if you could achieve this customer choice recognition, right? With that said, let's jump into the details here. First, I wanted to share something that some of you may already have noticed in the title slide here. The next release is actually called 2024.2. Normally, if you had continued with our standard versioning scheme, so to speak, the next release would have been 2024.1. If you recall, the last release was called 2023.4. This is currently in rollout. We're also working on an on-premise version here, but we decided to relabel this to 2024.2 because we wanted to align with the other Ivanti Neurons products that Ivanti has in the portfolio. So this just makes it easier. All the products as they release in April would have the same version number. We had some inconsistency there that we just wanted to resolve here. Other than this label change, so to speak, for the version, there's no difference in plan. We continue to do quarterly releases. We continue to deliver the capabilities that we were planning for. So again, it's purely a relabeling, but I don't want to call that out, not that you're surprised later on, right? Now, again, some of you may already have seen this slide as well. This is a summary of our overall themes, our focus areas in the service management space for 2024. You can see here some of the key themes that we are targeting in our development side, and we'll touch on many of those during this preview of 2024.2 today. Now, not every quarterly release will touch on each individual theme. Sometimes we may skip a theme in a certain release cycle, but you'll see we'll touch on many of these focus areas in the upcoming release as well, and in some of the subsequent ones, and we had in the past one as well, right? So this represents, again, some of the key areas. User experience is, of course, an important topic. We're investing in AI capabilities, integrations with external systems, also integrations across different Ivanti products. That's an important part as well. We're building out our line of business capability, collaboration platform. Those are the key topics here. Okay, so let's jump into the details here. I wanted to share one very exciting news, and I'll start here with the external integration piece, because that is something where we could do a kind of a pre-release, so to speak. I'll get to that in a second. What we've seen increasing at many of our customers is the need for additional integration, specifically in the context of service management, right? And that's driven from our perspective by 3 key trends here. One is that a lot of companies are starting to use more SaaS applications and thus interact with more external vendors as part of their day-to-day work. The more SaaS solutions you have, the more vendors you have to deal with. And a lot of companies have a cloud-first strategy when it comes to their internal applications. That could also mean, infrastructure as a service. Of course, that involves, those cloud services like AWS or Azure, involves external parties as well. And sometimes even, they do selective outsourcing for functions like the service desk, etc. So in general, there's a trend for having to deal with more external partners. That's certainly one need where you think about additional external integrations. The second driver is this drive towards hyper automation, because the more you want to automate, eventually you get to a point where you have to reach out into external systems here. And so that drives the need for additional integrations. And last but not least, it's the drive to enable product teams to be more agile and deliver innovation faster. That often goes hand in hand with being able to implement interactions between the centralized service desk, for example, and these individual product teams, right? So all of that drives additional integration needs. And one way to make this super easy is our new Ivanti Neurons IPAs offering that we are just making available, just having released. This is a new add-on offering to our Ivanti Neurons for ITSM, ITAM, and line of business offerings. So you have to be on the SaaS version of Ivanti Neurons for ITSM. It's an important part because the solution itself is also a cloud version. It's powered by Workato, one of the leading iPaaS platforms. And we have integrated, as you can see it here on the right side, fully into our admin UI, and that enables an ITSM administrator to build out integration flows using a low-code, no-code approach, which significantly accelerates the time it takes to build these integrations. It's super easy. It can be done without anybody having to code anything, but it's also very fast, right? And so you're basically just dragging and dropping, nodes on a canvas and connecting it, and thus building an integration flow, right? So not only have we integrated this from a UI perspective, but we also are starting to deliver pre-built recipes. That's the terminology for these integration flows to our customers. Initially, we only on 3 areas, but we expect to deliver a lot more pre-build of these flows over time so that you have a starting point and very quickly can take those, either implement them out of the box or adjust them quickly. And again, that is available for all customers who are on that latest version 2023.4 in SaaS, right? That is very exciting. Here you can see on the right side an example of how these integration flows look like. Again, they're super easy to build out, and it allows you then to build out very easily integrations across many different scenarios that are relevant from a service management perspective, right? Whether it's ticket brokering or e-bonding to external parties, whether it's implementing request fulfillment with external parties involved, onboarding, again, integration with development systems like Jira or Azure DevOps, ITOM integration, collaboration, and many, many scenarios where external integrations play a role here. And again, you can use this approach to very quickly build out these integrations. Ultimately, again, we are accelerating the time it takes to build integrations. Very often you had to rely on external developers to not external or internal developers to build integrations using our APIs. By the way, those APIs continue to be available, and we continue to maintain and improve those APIs. This option is not going away. But again, for many scenarios, the iPaaS approach is just a lot faster, but also easier. So we're simplifying the integration part, and it's an extremely powerful and reliable platform. It's really one of the market leaders as per the most recent Gartner Magic Quadrant. They confirmed that as well again. And it's a powerful platform that really is at the enterprise grade level, right? So again, that's already available today. If you have interest, talk to your partners, talk to your salesperson from Ivanti, and you're able to get insights into how exactly that works. Again, that's an exciting new offering from an Ivanti perspective to augment your ITSM or ITAM solution, right? Now let's move on to the topic of user experience. So here we are on a path to build out our new self-service experience. Sometimes we refer to it as V3. This is really the technology basis, not just for a responsive UI across different form factors with accessibility, etc., but also the basis then for some of the functional innovation that we plan to do. That was not necessarily the focus for these initial releases. Initially we wanted to make sure we have the same capabilities built out. that we have in V2, and we're on the path to provide that very soon. But it will be the right modern technology basis and to deliver, in future some additional innovation. Also, I should mention this is just one of many options or channels to interact with the service desk here. And as part of this release, we're delivering a number of additional capabilities that bring us closer to this feature equivalency. We're not quite there yet, but again, you'll see we are adding quite a number of capabilities. And in order to show that, let me switch over to this system here. So here you see the latest version that is, again, in work here of the self-service UI. I'm currently logged in as an administrator because I wanted to show some of that administration capabilities in a second. That's why there's this blue bar here. Normally, the end users wouldn't see that. And you can see here we have this new tile option as one of the new widgets here. So if I switch over to the admin space here, this is the modern layout editor. You can see that you can build out the homepage layout, for example, using drag and drop, different column configurations, etc. And you can then drag and drop modules, different widgets, basically onto the canvas here and build that out, right? So the new capabilities that we added is additional options here for the quick links area. Before we were only supporting lists, but now you can have tile and carousel as options here. And with those quick links, of course, you can pick very different target areas that you can point to with these click link. These could be things inside of the self-service solution, the service catalog, specific service catalog items, knowledge base, specific articles, but you can even include, again, generic URLs, and you can jump off from that tile into specific other areas, right? So again, that allows you to build quick links and visualize them in a slightly different way here. Should also use this here to mention that the additional configuration options, for example, around the welcome message, right? This is now fully configurable using some variables like first name, etc. You can get both the greeting as well as the welcome message, so to speak. You can translate them. Those capabilities are now also configurable in the system here today. And then let me jump over to a different page here. One additional area that you can see here is the rating of knowledge article that's now also available as part of this upcoming release here. So you have either a thumbs up or down or a star rating. We can have both, by the way, if you want to. I'll show that in a second, but usually you would probably choose one or the other. And then a feedback area here. So let me switch over to the administrator role because we wanted to see how that looks like from a configuration perspective. So then I go here to the knowledge capability, and you can see here that you can configure these feedback options. So I enabled the star rating, but again, you could have a thumbs up or down, whether the article was helpful instead, or you can disable the comments or feedback area. Those are options that you can choose here, right? By the way, there is an additional widget that I should mention here. That's the static HTML widget that you also now have available to add to your homepage, right? So you can see here this generic HTML widget. You can use static HTML content here and add that to the homepage as well. For example, if you wanted to add some icons or graphics and link out to external system, that's another option here. So you have a lot of flexibility when it comes to building that homepage. I think that kind of gave a little bit of insight what we're doing here. Again, these are slides we just went through. Configuration options, I think here. Oh, I forgot one item here. Let me jump back and see. One thing you can do is you can have an export option here. so that whatever you configure in terms of the homepage or the different subpages, you can now export that very easily into a external file format and import that on a different instance. That makes it very easy to move certain configurations that you've done on your development or test system into production, right? And then last but not least, I couldn't show that part, is that we are starting with the upcoming release, support of right to left, screen layout and language, specifically Arabic, as part of the release. If you recall, we did a beta version of that as part of the previous release, but with the upcoming release, we plan to fully release this. So with that said, I want to hand it over to Alan to talk some more about the next topic, and it's artificial intelligence. Alan?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. The first piece I want to touch on is what we're calling kind of an incident summarization. Now, the idea here is to be able to leverage generative AI to look at an incident's description. We're going to look at a lot of journal entries, and in an attempt to summarize the incident for the analyst for two reasons. One good use case is I'm an analyst and I just had a new issue passed over to me. And maybe there's a lot of history here. And yeah, I could probably read one thing at a time, but if I could generate a quick summary that gets me up to speed, I can be much more effective in helping that customer. I'm a big fan of kind of showing what's working and how it's going. And your screen should refresh here in just a moment with an example of an incident here. I've got my incident, it's active, and I just want to summarize this piece across a number of things. Clicking a button, sends this information out, and then once I have my summary, I could copy it to the clipboard to maybe send it off to a customer. So it's helping me create customer communications. If they're asking like, hey, what's going on with my incident? A click of a button generates and writes this for me, and then I can just drop it into an email or something I might like. The verbiage it uses is something that tends to be much more natural and conversational. So you just see an example of this here, where I could then take it and go ahead and copy it to the clipboard or whatever I might like. This expands out as you get more notes, as you get more as you get more history with this. This begins to build out to create a very nice summary of what's been happening. And that's going to be key as analysts start to maybe follow the sun support and pass that back and forth. So the other thing, while we're here, I'll move on to the next thing so we can kind of skip it over from a slide perspective, is leveraging generative AI to create knowledge articles. So I'm going to back this up here. Let's get into a resolved incident. Let's do that. Let's do all. Jump over to one that is resolved, grab that, and now this action becomes available. And what this is going to do is, as we select that, I can pick the knowledge article type that I'm looking for, but it's then going to build this article for me, take the information, drop it into that, and then I could get it into the knowledge process for review, validation, and publication. The goal here is to drive knowledge into the system. That knowledge is then used through self-service, used through Microsoft Teams for call deflection, answering those questions, resolving those issues. The goal is the service desk is no longer dealing with some of those because they're trying to make it easier for them to get knowledge into the flow of work here. Now we'll evolve this. Right now it generates knowledge articles, but think about evolving this into, and probably a little later on, more of a content generation mechanism where I need to write an email to the customer. I need to do something with an incident, and I can use Gen AI to create that content for me. Knowledge articles seems to be the most asked for use case across some of those because it has clear and tangible benefits when you look at how do we support end users with that. Issue summarization, ticket summarization is more on the end user side where we'll have the Gen AI kind of summarize what's been going on with an issue for an end user as they're submitting it. the net is back into the service desk when an incident is created. The description is nicely summarized. I've got information on knowledge articles the end user looked at, maybe FAQs they poked around, so that when I, as an analyst, get that issue, now I can be much more effective. Rather than sending an article they may have already looked at, we can go ahead and maybe try something different or cause a different path that might resolve the issue quicker. So all of this and something new that you may see. So these options here, of course, are toolbar buttons, and they may not appear in your tenant straight away. Our AI capability is for the Premier package and higher, right? That is incorporating that. We're looking at other ways from a sales motion perspective for customers to adopt AI capability. But one of the things you may see, and that we're also introducing, is what we're calling our AI configuration hub. And you may see this in your tenants, and it really allows you control over what capabilities do I want to adopt. And rather than here they all are, use them, it's, well, maybe I'm not ready for ticket summarization until we do a lot of enablement on the end user side to make sure they understand the experience. Maybe our knowledge flow is a little different, and we may eventually turn that on, but we're going to, set that to inactive for now. And all of these have some configuration options with that. If we want to do some urgency prediction, do we want to be able to show that to the end user or not? So, and there's some options there as we go ahead and configure what we're looking for. And the same thing as we create knowledge base articles. How do we get data points and fields over to different elements within the knowledge article? Different customers create different templates from a knowledge perspective. So I think this is pretty important as we dive into that. So I wanted to kind of get into the product to kind of show some of these Gen AI capabilities. Looking to the future, we'll look for things like more natural language processing, specifically in the area of maybe dashboard widget creation. So rather than coming here to my dashboard and coming in and creating my new widget and figuring it all out, I can just get into an NLP designer, type in natural language, hey, show me, all tickets with a SLA breaching next 24 hours. It creates the widget and you can drag it onto a dashboard. This type of data visualization capability, just through being able to naturally language tell it what you're looking for, really is going to streamline the process of dashboard creation. If you're familiar with that, it's here's my chart types and create my saved searches and filters and drill downs and so forth. And you'll still have that on the widget. But the creation of the data and the initial generation of that is going to be a lot more streamlined. And that's probably closer to second half 2024, but I thought I'd give a nice preview on some of the other Gen AI capabilities that we're talking about. So jumping into collaboration, as people work together and teams tend to work together, whether it's peer-to-peer support from an end user perspective, or you have analysts needing to support end users, we're driving to this in a couple of ways. And the first is improvements to our included MS Teams capability. Recently, actually with 23.4, we've added ability to leverage knowledge base articles. So within that Teams interaction, the bot will suggest a knowledge article or FAQ, right? Goal is call deflection with this chatbot. Well, as with really any chatbot, the goal is call deflection. So offering that to the user prior to an incident being created is going to be key. Something we're adding is if the end user looks at a knowledge article, determines that it was helpful and resolved their issue, and they indicate that, the bot will create and open and close an incident to record that transaction. So you now are starting to get metrics on deflection rates and those types of things. And that's really key as you start to look at, well, how has this bot helped us? Is it helping us? Deflection rates are going to be a key metric with that. So we've also added configurable questions within the Teams bot to be able to then say, make it feel more conversational. So if I'm logging an incident, rather than it saying, enter summary, right, you might put something more conversational in there. So something key from that. Looking forward a little bit, we'll be expanding the Teams bot out into creating service requests. So the bot can pick up, hey, you want to create a service request, and here's what we're thinking. Here's what you can go ahead and suggest from a request offering perspective to make it a lot easier for that. Now, we'll also look at even future, and this might be second half 2024 or in the first half of 2025, how we queue and route these interactions. How do we understand where the user wants to get to, and so forth. So, and then also looking at incorporating either SLM or small language models or large language models into the interaction, incorporating a bit more intelligence into a basic chatbot interaction and make it feel more like a conversational virtual assistant. So start to bridge that gap. So if you haven't adopted the Teams integration, just simply because it maybe hasn't delivered the capability you're looking for, I encourage you to maybe check it out. We are certainly evolving this into being another way that customers can either get help if they want to talk to an analyst who can drop it into the native chat that comes with ITSM, or we can deflect calls, which is the goal from that. And moving on, as we think about surveys, understanding that experience from an end user perspective, I think is key as we start to identify how do we make improvements to the service we give to our end users. Now, Ivanti Neurons DEX is certainly one way to more holistically understand the user experience across their asset, picking up on things like application crashes and performance and so forth, as well as a security posture. What do we have from missing patches and those types of things? The customer interaction aspect of DEX incorporates things like mean time to resolve times, what's our SLA been like, customer sentiment, and of course, survey responses. And that's what we are introducing here over the next couple of releases is a much improved survey designer. So you can create, it was arguably a modern looking survey, but the key here is different types of questions that make it easy to get feedback into the organization, because that's what's missing. As I talk to so many customers, its response rates are low. They range anywhere from 1% to 3% is generally where they land. I have talked to customers, they go as high as 5%. So it's clear that getting the feedback isn't happening. But as we unpacked that, it was because surveys were hard. They were hard to respond to. I get my email, I click the link, I go to a web page, and now I've got this big list of things I need to do. So we are improving the designer so you can create emoji-based surveys, simple star things, one question NPS surveys. We're looking at embedding the survey directly within the email. So the user no longer has to click a link and go to another location and have that experience. They can just hit reply, fill something out embedded right in the email, hit send, and that's it. It's literally down to just a few clicks. And then we're looking at building out a flow that shows some dynamic questions that say, hey, based on the response to question 1, I'm going to show you this question 2, which could be different if your response to question 1 was something different. So a lot more to come on this area as we seek to create a way for customers to get feedback from their end users. Initially, our entire goal is to drive up response rates. I've learned that no matter how elegant your survey looks, if no one's responding, it's not meeting the need. So that's what we're doing there. So More to come from a survey perspective on what we are solving in that case. All right, moving on. So let's talk a little bit about some of the cross-product things that we're doing. And Peter, I'll continue with this if that's okay, since I'm here. Some of you may be familiar with the trusted agent capability. And really what that does is it creates that secure connection between Ivanti Neurons for ITSM Cloud and a customer's on-premises. Our initial capabilities included things like LDAP and getting that authentication and so forth. But now we're releasing the ability to execute PowerShell scripts through that trusted agent capability. Now, one caveat here is going to be there on the fourth bullet point. They're signed PowerShell scripts. So if you leverage maybe a VPN in the past and don't want to use the VPN anymore, the trusted agent may be a great way to give similar capability without the overhead of a VPN. So execution of PowerShell through trusted agent, a bit of that May timeframe. We're able to kind of deliver updates kind of out of band. In other words, we don't have to wait for 24.3 because 24.2 is around, I think, around April is when we'll start deploying. We can give this as a really nice mid-release update. And that'll be key for customers who are looking to leverage this. So next slide.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. For Neurons bots, we have had an integration between ITSM and the Neurons bots as it relates to Workspace or the Neurons for Healing bots for quite some time. Where Neurons has really reimagined and reinvented how the bot framework works there to give them more capability. And we're updating ITSM to leverage that new bots experience. So as a bot is defined in the Neurons platform, I can go into ITSM, execute through workflow as this defines the graphical action designer to go ahead and trigger that bot to take actions through there. So we'll be leveraging some new Neurons APIs to trigger all of these in real time. So a lot of capability if you're integrated between Neurons for ITSM and the Neurons platform. Just a lot more options for automation and so forth. So look more for that. You see some of the capabilities we'll have there. Yeah, I love it. Applause. Yeah, you can applaud for that. Thanks for that. So this has been a little bit time coming as we worked out the way to do it properly. To have the most value and the least amount of disruption. So thank you all for your patience on that. Moving on here. And Peter, I'll turn it over to you to talk about our lines of business.
Absolutely. Thanks, Alan. Exciting stuff coming here. So I'll move on to the line of business side. If you recall, we've been investing into various non-IT or extension modules like HR, facilities, GRC, project and portfolio management, SecOps, that allow you to expand the investment that you've done in the platform into other areas and also basically apply the learnings from an ITSM perspective. IT tends to be a bit more mature in terms of service management principles to apply those same principles also to other shared service areas. And right now, as we showed in this 2024 focus slide, if you remember that, our focus is on building out the existing modules in more depth. So we're not expanding and adding more modules right now. The focus is really on building out the capabilities of the existing modules. And again, similar to the themes, we're not adding always new features in every module. So, very often we use focus areas for each release. And build out the capabilities here. So if you haven't checked out these non-IT capabilities or PPM GRC capabilities, definitely recommend that you look into this because, again, it's very easy to enable and leverage the existing platform investment that you've already done here. In terms of 2024.2, we're making some updates with a focus on the PPM module out of all of our again line of business modules. The focus has been a bit on PPM in terms of functional expansion here, and we're building out the capabilities around creating budgets and cost items, so to speak, in that PPM area. So you can define in a better way portfolio and project budgets. You can mark certain expense types as capital expenses and operational expenses, obviously with a goal later on to then report about the different expense types more accurately. You can again check a budget related to certain demands. You can tie approval workflows to these budget items. It's in general a much more powerful capabilities around budgeting and cost control in the context of project and portfolio management, right? And again, part of that is then also to leverage our V2 dashboard, our latest technology on the dashboard side, to create the corresponding reports and dashboards to look at this PPM information, including, again, the financial aspects of it. How are you doing, towards the budget? Are there budgets that are on track, projects that are on track in terms of budgets, projects that maybe are overrunning the budget? How much of the allocated budget is remaining for a certain project? Those type of charts and reports you can do as part of the version 2 dashboard, right? Moving on to another add-on capability, and that is spend intelligence. On this side, the upcoming release provides a couple of user experience enhancements. And let me see here if I can switch again to a live demo here. I'm logged into Ivanti Neurons here on the spend intelligence side, and I've gone to the software inventory. So for those of you who know the tool here, I may recall that we were showing the inventory information, the things that were discovered, and then, if possible, normalized based on the catalog that we are managing here. We showed them in 2 tabs, basically. One is recognized and one is unrecognized software. And that kind of distinction caused a lot of confusion with a lot of users, because unrecognized, it wasn't quite clear. Does it mean it wasn't found in the catalog, right? Or, what else does it mean exactly? So we ended up deciding to show this information now in a single list. Now, if a software piece is recognized, matches something in our catalog, so to speak, that we deliver with different software products, you would see end-of-life information, you'd see a normalized name, etc. So you still get all the benefits of that catalog, so to speak. It's just less confusing for the users, as they often couldn't make sense of the different options here. Secondly, we are changing the way how the filtering works. Again, if you recall the UI, before we had a simple per column filter option, but now you can build out more powerful filter queries, basically. So you can, with logical expression, basically build out a corresponding query. Let's say I want to look at software items where the vendor contains Adobe. And then I also wanted to check how, let's say, it needs to be installed at least 3 times on any system, so to speak. So you can easily build these kind of queries and see those line items. Of course, then you can drill down into look at the specific installs on different devices, etc. And it basically allows you to very quickly query and build more powerful queries, and then again take actions from it by looking at the details here, right? By the way, speaking of actions, we always had this export button here to basically export the entire table. But if you want if you wanted to export only select rows, you can just select them, and there's an additional export option here that allows you to select specific rows and then export them. So that's another item here. So again, mostly usability improvements that make it easier to work with a product. You still have the full benefits of the software inventory, the discovery capabilities that come with Neurons. It's just a better way how to use that information and to manage the software that is installed, right? And by the way, the last point here, we also made some performance improvement around the SaaS management area. If you recall, that's one of the functional areas of the spend intelligence solution where you can track corresponding SaaS usage and also SaaS cost related to it, right? With that said, I think we're towards the end of the presentation that we had. Again, wanted to remind everybody, if you're happy with the Ivanti Neurons for ITSM solution or ITAM solution, please submit corresponding 5-star reviews. I again just use that QR code or the URL, and again, please remember to in the recommendation questions to use 8 or higher, because otherwise it means that you're not recommending it, right? And again, you can leverage existing reviews that you have, but you need to update them in order to count for the latest round of this voice of the customer report, right? With that said, I think we have a few minutes for questions left here. Let me see. I wasn't able to look into the chat. Is there anything, Alan, on the chat side that we need to look at?
There's actually quite a bit. I've been trying to respond as I go.
I think we could start with Heather. It says, is self-service compliant with WCAG for accessibility now?
Love it. I just hit reply on that. When it comes to WCAG, we are targeting 2.1 level AA. I know 2.2 is out there. We're evaluating that. But we have engaged a third party to go through our self-service interfaces as well as analysts. And they use a combination of automated testing as well as users that leverage assistive technologies. They have identified the issues. They have fed them back to us. We have corrected them. The latest updates are in the current code that will deploy with 24.2. And this is an ongoing effort. Once 24.2 is out, we repeat the process, and we'll continue to go through any critical high and low findings that they have. Our conformance statement is all done through Voluntary Product Assessment Template, or VPAT, that vendors use to state their level of conformance to WCAG. And I put a link in the chat that can be found on our WSTIC profile. And whenever that VPAT is updated, I anticipate a minimum of 2 times per year, could be more. We'll always put it out there. So the latest can always be found out there. So,
are there any new features within Contract Manager?
Not in this release. That was not a focus area for this release. I do have one here, and I quickly wanted to show this. So there's one question: does iPaaS have an integration into UiPath? So let me show you, in case you have questions like that, how you could very quickly check. So this is the Workato webpage. Again, we're using Workato because it has literally hundreds and thousands of pre-built recipes. So you just go under solutions to say view all. You end up on this page about integrations. You scroll down a little bit, and then you see again that library of connectors that are there, and there are many, many, many different ones. So obviously the best way would be to search it, and if you look for UiPath, you can see that there's a pre-built connector to it. You can click on that. It will tell you a little bit about what exactly the UiPath connector can do. So in this case, it only includes actions. There's also a trigger concept, if you know the Workato platform. So trigger means, you can start an integration workflow based on something happening in that application. Action means you can, do something in the application. In this case, you couldn't start an iPaaS integration workflow from UiPath, but you can trigger it as part of an corresponding workflow. So again, that's a very easy way how you can check whether pre-built modules are available. I should also mention that there are universal connectors available. So in case you don't find anything in here, you'll see that there's HTTP key connectors, for example, Open API, GraphQL. There are a couple of standards that are supported, and those are generic or universal connectors. I think it's the official language that you can use to integrate with application, even if there's no pre-built connector, specific connector available. Right?
Is there a good supporting document to set up team integrations?
So to the first one for the tabs, yeah, we can take a look at that. We've had some requests to customers to have some flexibility there. And I just answered the Teams integration question in the chat. We've made some recent updates to the Teams documentation. But if it still isn't clear or there's a sticking point or you're not successful, I also added my email address. Shoot me an email and I will work with our tech writers to review and get it updated. I see so many names on this list. You all already have my email address, and you know this, so send away, and we'll make sure to get that updated. I'm told that others, based on recent updates, have been successful, but please let me know if some things still aren't quite clear. We'll get that updated.
So it's an extra cost for the iPaaS and AI items. Will this be a package that we can apply, or do we need Ivanti to help us install the new updates / package and set it up? Is there a best practice for setup, etc. training?
So on the iPaaS licensing side, I just responded. Again, this is an additional fee. This involves a very powerful third-party, the market-leading third-party iPaaS platform, and thus there are costs involved. We need to charge for it. It's a very low entry point, let me say it that way. So you can start out testing out one integration. It's super easy to get started with it, so to speak, but it does include an additional license fee. I do want to call that out. And then the second question was, was that about iPaaS as well?
It was just best practice for setup, training, etc. regarding that.
Yeah, I mean, in general, there's nothing to set up really. As soon as you activate it, either in production when you officially license it, or maybe in a trial environment, if you wanted to try it, you have immediate access to it. Of course, you need to know the basics of building a recipe. That's very easy to do. Workato actually shares a lot of information openly as part of the training capabilities. We plan to share more information about how to build these integrations. And again, we also deliver pre-built recipes. So it's fairly easy to get started with it. There's nothing to install. Remember, this is, again, a SaaS capability. And as soon as you activate it, it would be visible to you in the admin space, right? Or to the admin. Right?
Alrighty. Another question. How does AI determine which analysts are summarizing / categorizing things correctly?
So the AI doesn't look at who is doing it, and it doesn't necessarily scrub for correctness and say it doesn't deliver confidence level. Yeah, it's just taking the data from in ITSM and summarizing what it's fed to try to make it more natural or conversational. And to answer another question, the AI also doesn't identify and anonymize PII and things like that. Again, it just takes the data it's given and summarizes it and gives you an output. So great things for us to take a look at, though. Things like privacy, anonymization, and that type of thing. And what does that look like? Something we'll have to take into account as we feed it into our AI engine.
We have a few more questions. I don't know if we'll get to all of them, but will Ivanti create an ITSM connectors for Power Automate?
You may find it in the iPaaS one. I don't have a specific connector for Power Automate on the roadmap. Certainly something we'll take a look at from the Workato perspective.
Is there a V2 dashboard to be able to consolidate multiple projects better, like projects, tasks, and assets in a consolidated dashboard?
So in general, you have fairly good control in V2 what type of information you want to show on the dashboard. Sure, we are providing out-of-the-box dashboards that we think are valuable, but again, there's control how to bring that information onto a dashboard, right? So we'd have to understand a bit more details, probably better to discuss that offline to see exactly what type of dashboard you want to build and see whether we can do that. But in general, again, you're in control over what dashboards you want to show. We deliver predefined ones as a starting point, right? Because many of these dashboards are fairly standard, but there's some level of control there.
Let's do this question and then finish things up. I know we're at the top of the hour. Is there any R&D from Ivanti going into SaaS application discovery?
So it's not as part of our core ITSM solution. Now, SaaS application discovery is a tricky topic. I mean, in general, you typically need first a connection to the SaaS system, and then you can find out exactly how many users are set up, et cetera, et cetera. It's very difficult to just monitor that based on HTTP traffic, so to speak, right? And it's a SaaS application. That's pretty much all you can really monitor, so to speak, on your network itself. So typically it involves setting up a connection. Most of the times you do know what the official SaaS applications are that the company is using. Those anyway show up in Okta or whatever other mechanism you may have. Or otherwise it's on the approved list, so to speak. So you typically know how to connect to it and get the information out of who are the users who are set up that way, etc. But again, beyond that, we'd probably have to do a bit of a deeper dive, but it's not, really part of the core ITSM and ITAM functionality. That's more on the discovery side, right? As you know, we have other modules that cover both the client and server discovery side, right? And as well as SaaS.
Okay, well, thank you. We do have some more questions in the chat. We will answer those offline and post them once the recording link goes out. So that's what we'll do, just because there's too many and we're over time. Just want to thank everyone for joining today. Thank you, Alan, Peter, for presenting, and thank you for all the customers for joining. We'll hopefully see you on the next one.
Yeah, it's great to see you all. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.